Welcome to Africa's Vision Network. My name is Omar Ashaka, your guest host. The title of our program is Music, a Godly Gift of Inspiration. Our special guest is Professor Latanya Wren, a professor of music, concert pianist, singer, and songwriter. Welcome, Professor Wren.
Thank you.
Excuse me, also known to me as Sister Wren, because you're the choir director of my daughter Tigges' choir at Bethesda Baptist Church in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Before we get started, though, I just want to say a few things about 2017. 2017 is really a special year for me here at Africa's Vision Network, because this is my 20th year of being involved with Africa's Vision Network. 20 years of having topics on that affect the Black community and African community. But also let me say that, as you know, 2017 has been a very painful year for us in America. Whether it's the gun violence, in particular, I remember one case where young Breonna McMillan from Washington, D.C., had come home from boarding school in Wisconsin to visit her mom in D.C. And she was killed, I think the day before Thanksgiving, or sometime around that time frame. Murdered right outside of her apartment complex. 16 years old. The mass shootings in 2017. The car killings, Charlottesville, something I call the flirtation with nuclear war because of President Trump's position. Racism. So 2017 has been a very, very painful year for me. We've also witnessed very recently sexual harassment. I have 3 daughters, a wife, and many female friends. So that's definitely something that needs to be checked and corrected. But Professor Wren, the last quick point that I want to mention that's been very painful in 2017 for me personally is the abandonment of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, the soldier who was abandoned in Niger. For whatever reason, hopefully an investigation will tell us the truth. But this soldier was missing for 48 hours before they were able to find him. And again, this is the Republic of Niger in West Africa. The reason that was special to me because I served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Niger. And I have a quick theory on what may have happened to Sergeant Johnson. We have a shot of a young boy, Nigerian boy, who really looks like a younger version of Sergeant Johnson. And we do have this stereotype of what Africans look like. But I know when I was there, I saw so many people that look like high school buddies, college buddies, because we all can look alike.
Yes.
And my theory, and this is my last point, is that when those French contractors went to retrieve those Americans, I don't think they were thinking Black America. And this is not a racist statement. I just think that their thinking was we are rescuing Americans, and I just think the mindset may have been white Americans. And I have a theory that perhaps Sergeant Johnson was confused as being a Nigerian soldier. Any rate,
Wow.
Sister Wren, I bring that up because music, a gift of inspiration.
Yes.
If that inspiration is needed at any time,
Yes.
when we look at what has happened in 2017. But let's hear a little bit about Professor Wren. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I am from Birmingham, Alabama. Born and raised. I was born in University Hospital down in Birmingham, Alabama, to the late William Wren and to Joanne Wren, who's still living. So, got my musical gifts from my mother. My mother attended Talladega College back in the 60s. She was a music major there back in the 60s. And my mother and father are like almost like children of the civil rights movement. They came along during that time period. And so that's where I come from. Born and raised in the Deep South, Birmingham, Alabama.
Well, I was reading your bio. I noticed you start learning the piano at age 6 or 7.
Age 7.
What was that like? I mean, did somebody
Oh.
discover you? I mean, did you?
Well, my mother began to see when I was, going to church, being raised in church. I would always run to the piano at the end of services. She was a church organist, and then it was something about the music, the church music, that just kind of drew me to music, period. And I actually was inspired by my mother. My mother was a musician, so I was inspired to be like her.
Interesting. So, did you just volunteer? Was it any discipline required by your mom?
Oh my goodness. Well, she saw that there was potential there, so she got me a really good piano teacher at that time, and she's now deceased, Patricia Art Williams. My mother got me with a really good piano instructor, and from there I just began to flourish.
Now, I noticed at 10 years old at your church was Green
Limited Missionary Baptist Church. I started playing for the Sunday school
at age 10.
at age 10.
How were the Sunday schools members?
The Sunday school members, there were different ages at that particular time. That was back probably in the late 70s, early 80s. They were most of them were older. You had the children, the junior choir, and the junior age, and the youth age, and then you had the young adults. So we had a lot of people that were members of our church at
And
that
you
time.
were teaching all of them at age 10.
I was playing the hymns and leading them and I would play, and at age 10 out of my book the hymns that I knew, and they would sing along.
So what was that experience like for you in terms of your confidence? And I mean,
Oh,
were you
my
aware
goodness.
of what you were achieving at such a young age?
Oh my goodness, it prepared me for where I was definitely going in my life, because I was nervous, and my mother, she put me out there and said, well, this is a good way for you to learn the hymns of the church. So while I was learning the fundamentals of music, I was still getting, that was just a really good training ground, because then I could get in not just the technique and the classical, but I can also get in my church and gospel. So it was very important for me with my mom that I become versatile.
Now, you mentioned, Professor Wren, you mentioned hymns.
Yes.
Can you give our audience a brief definition of hymns? I mean, because sometimes we talk about gospel music, but can you kind of give a little brief definition for those who may not clearly understand the different terminology?
Hymns are definitely praise unto God, personal. They're personal, and it really comes from a personal situation. When the hymn writer writes a hymn, they're coming from their own personal life and their trials and tribulations and what they've come through, and so they're emptying out, through the words in a hymn.
Okay.
And
And that's kind of fascinating because
yes,
we had, one of our former church members,
yes,
Robin Oliver, on the program.
yes.
And
Okay.
one of the songs that she sung was, "Precious Lord, Take My Hand."
Yes, yes.
And that definitely, from what I learned about the background as to
Oh,
why that
yeah.
was written,
Yeah.
falls right into the definition you just gave.
Yes, Thomas Dorsey, the inspiration behind Precious Lord from Thomas Dorsey was that his wife had lost a baby, and the baby and the wife passed away. He was so grieved, and I don't think he could go on, but God inspired him through this song to write, "Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on. I am tired, I'm weak, I'm worn." So he was able to empty out what was coming out of his soul and put it to music.
I think that's an example of why, excuse me, I use the definition or the title of our program, music, a godly gift of inspiration. Because in the case of Thomas Dorsey,
Yes.
not only did it inspire him to go forward,
Yes.
but when we think about the millions of people who listen to that song and
Yes.
who are inspired by it,
Yes.
are there any new hymn writers or songwriters that you can give an example of who's kind of doing something similar, maybe, excuse me, in the last...
Talking about modern day, probably
Right,
the last,
right.
what, 10, 15 years. Some of our modern day writers, Margaret Durow, I don't know if you ever heard of Give Me a Clean Heart.
I think I have.
Let's see, we have, there's a guy out that he has a hymn that's getting ready to come out in the new hymns, in the new hymn book that's getting ready to come out. His name is Samuel Robinson. He's a new modern day hymn writer. Richard Smallwood is one of our modern day hymn writers. Total Praise.
And he's a local
Oh, he's local.
artist,
Yes.
Washington, D.C.
Total Praise. The song Total Praise. He wrote that. So that has become a hymn.
Have you written any hymns, Professor? Grant?
I do have songs that are going to be looked at as being probably in the upcoming one of the upcoming future hymns. So yes, I do write in the hymn style. Yes, I do.
One of the things I've said on this show before, God has blessed all of us with gifts.
Yes.
But I've always felt that musicians have been given a gift that is so special and so unique,
Yes.
because if you use that gift properly,
Yes.
you can touch the lives of so many people.
Yes.
Let
Oh
me hear your
yes.
comments on that.
One of the things I think that God has given musicians as a gift is to be able to inspire people in a instrumental way, and sometimes you don't have to say words to inspire people. Music ministers to people in so many ways that words can't, because it's something about the music that just gets inside of your soul and spirit and just causes you to just want to, live better, or causes you to want to press on if you're going through a bad situation. That music just is really good for the soul.
Now, you said it gets inside of your soul, Professor Wren.
Yes.
Is that everybody? And the reason I say that, because
Yes,
there's some
you're right.
people who, they seem like music doesn't move them not one bit.
I think it has a lot to do with just the fact that, and even in the Bible, it talks about how music it actually draws people to the house of God. So I think when people are not open to music, I think it's just them not, maybe they're just going through something and they're not wanting to receive it. But anyone that likes music or loves music in any kind of way, it just makes your life better.
Now, there's been a musician who told me that it's just not in some people's DNA.
It could be, and even for some ministers and sometimes preachers, sometimes they'll say, well, music is not important, but music is very, very important. Music is mentioned over 70 times in the Bible. It's mentioned a lot of times in the Bible. It soothes the angry beast. Calms the souls of people. It causes people to unite
Do you see that as,
from all races, color, and creeds.
how would you define that kind of power that you have as a musician?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if you're savaging the beast, so to speak, or taming the beast, so to speak.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of power.
Yeah, I have to make sure I keep my spirit and soul right.
And how do you do that?
Oh, I make sure that I stay in the right posture. I stay in tune with the Creator.
And if you don't mind, and how do you do that? I mean, are we talking about prayer alone, or is it?
Oh yeah, prayer, staying within a positive attitude, at all times, no matter what things look like, no matter what someone has done to me to make me feel bad, or what someone tries to do to me to make me feel bad. I still have this state of mind that I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be at peace. I'm going to be all right. So that's what I do.
That ties into a question I was going to ask you. I mentioned earlier
Yes.
how, at least for me, 2017 has been very painful.
Yes.
I was wondering, as a musician,
Yes.
when you see the mass shootings, the racism, all the ugly things in life, as a musician,
Yes.
and even when you're playing sometimes at the
Yes.
church,
Yes.
tell us, what is that like? I mean,
I think about it, and sometimes I'm grieved, by it, and it causes me to want to write a song about it, or it makes me think about what can I do to be to be able to be a part of solving the problem, through music. Music is, can be a great problem solver for a lot of the bad things that are going on in the world.
now, and that's really great to hear.
Yeah.
What about, with musicians, you also got the financial aspect of it.
Yes, you do. You do.
So how do you draw that line? I mean, where you're going to try to help and don't worry about making the money, or how do you position yourself?
How do I position myself? I have to, you have to keep a balance. You have to know, yes, you do need to, you need to help. You have to have monetary resources to do what it is. You have to have monetary resources to do what it is that we do. But there is a boundary, that you have to have, in regards to that. So.
What defines that boundary? I mean, is it something in each musician's heart, or
Yeah.
how do you?
Yeah, you have to know when to help and when not to help. You have to know, when to do something and when not to do something, and then it's your spirit of discernment that says, okay, I'm going to do this here, but I'm not going to do this over here. So.
You mentioned a very interesting word. You used the word discernment.
Yes.
I mean, which is critical, really,
in every facet.
Right.
In every facet of of a musician's life, being a professional musician, and then I'm also in the workplace too, as well, learning how to balance that.
Okay. I've had other guests, and I've asked them who either musicians or studied music.
Yes.
I've asked them about the late Whitney Houston.
Oh.
I mean, you could probably change your genre of music, but what are your thoughts on her? I mean, because her
I'm so
background
glad.
sounds very similar to yours. And
My take on Whitney Houston is this: I grew up with her. Her mother, Cissy Houston, who was the aunt of Dionne Warwick. I'm so glad you asked me this, because I'm still quite grieved by Whitney Houston's death, because I grew up on her music. She was the voice of the century, aside from Aretha Franklin. Whitney Houston, her voice was a ministry. When I think I did a performance up in Syracuse, New York at the time. I was with my godmother, Dr. Joan Hilsman, and she had got me up to perform on a program up there. But at that particular time, we were watching television together, and flashed that Whitney Houston had died. She died, the way she died and everything. And we just got quiet. We became silent. We just sat there. We couldn't say anything, because we knew that this was a transition. This was a shift that had happened in the music industry, a major shift, because she was pretty much the blueprint for what an artist could be, or wanted to be, or could achieve. She had achieved it. She had achieved everything. She had the money, the fame, the fortune, And aside from, and even while she was on the substance abuse, she was still achieving, and then it just got to a place where, she had gotten off of the substance abuse, but she, kind of went back. So she was a great inspiration in my life. She was definitely a great inspiration in my life. She was definitely the blueprint for what we could achieve. I was greatly inspired by her. Yes.
Do you think by chance, excuse me, when she was on drugs, do you think she was still singing about God?
Oh, she was definitely a believer. She was definitely a believer, because it was just in her blood. Like the singing was in her blood, but that was in her blood too. The church, the God, yeah, it was definitely in her blood. She knew who God was, but she rebelled.
Okay, I guess you can't answer my next question because you being your professor out at Bowie State, if one of your students asked Professor Wren, how could she sing about God and at the same time do drugs?
Because it is an addiction. And so, you have to, I don't know what it's like to be on drugs, but I can imagine. And I think she really needed this consistent prayer and consistent just support to come off because she had been on it for so long, And so, me and a friend of mine, we were actually supporting her even in spite of everything.
Right.
We wanted her to pull through,
Now, one point that I think is interesting, I mentioned how your early childhood in terms
Yes.
of being exposed kind of sounded to me a little bit like Whitney Houston.
Oh, wow.
But what I
I'm
recall,
honored.
though, I believe that Whitney Houston, though, I think there may have been a rocky relationship with her dad.
Okay.
I believe, but I know
It was. I think at certain points
Right.
in her life, and even during her professional career.
But you, even now and always, have honored your parents.
Because they have been supporting me from the beginning, from the onset. Mom and dad didn't always have the money for my lessons, but they sacrificed, because they saw something great in me. They saw potential. I can remember my dad, it was, a young man calling the house. He said, "Oh yeah, I know what he wants."
You remember how you were at that time?
I was in high school, 14 or 15 years old.
And so how'd you respond to that?
He said, I couldn't. I couldn't respond. He said, he was the man of the house.
Right,
He said, "Oh yeah, I know what you want." I would just see the young man at school the next day. He said, and so my dad, "Don't call my house anymore."
Because you mentioned specifically, your parents were strict.
Oh yeah, they were strict. They weren't strict with my brother like that, but they were strict with me.
And that's why you are where you are today, right?
Yes, I am.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, let me fast
It
forward.
works. It works out.
Well, Professor Wren, you mentioned your student. I was curious about the number of students at Bowie,
Yes.
the music students.
Yes. Oh, yes. We have about maybe 200 to 400 music students. In the fine arts department, between 200 to 400, because the fine arts department consists of music technology, instrumental band, voice.
And again, that's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I was asking, again, they have cut out music programs in some of the schools. And I know you mentioned, excuse me, because of music technology,
Yes.
hip hop, but also I talked about the Macy's Day Parade
Yes.
when I saw the bands. And I'm not saying that it's racism, but I just wonder where the young musicians are.
Yeah, well, the young musicians, like I said, this is a hip hop generation that we're in. There are still some good bands out there, but the whole music technology piece has really come in and really almost taken over to a certain extent, because you have rap music. It used to be rap music, now it's hip hop, and then you have the whole trap music thing that has come in to view, almost to the point, And they've also, watered down R&B. Used to be called R&B. Now they call it neo soul. You
But
know.
but
And,
let's I'm sorry. Let's go back to something basic though, because
yes.
my daughter Zora.
Yes.
This is her second year. She's playing the saxophone.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
at
Okay.
Potomac Landing Elementary School.
Yes.
And her music teacher is Mr. Paul Hilliard.
Yes. Okay.
Great teacher.
Yeah.
He doesn't play, no nonsense.
Okay.
But I was reading, he sends emails
Yes.
about the classes and things.
Yes.
But he was having he was having trouble
Mm-hmm.
finding
Mm-hmm.
students to play various instruments.
Okay.
Even though the instruments were going to be provided free.
Yes.
So I guess my question would be for you,
Yes.
Professor Wren.
Yes.
Is there any marketing? Is there your associations, for example?
Yes.
For example, I know a doctor, they have programs where they come together, they try to find students who have an interest in medicine.
Yes.
I was curious,
Yes.
as a professor at the university,
Yes.
is that something that music associations are doing to keep music alive? I know you talk about music technology.
Yes. But in PG Prince George's County, there are a lot of advocates for, music in PG County. There's this organization by the name of FAME that is really pushing for students to study music, and they have summer camps. And the person that's over it is African American. And so, there are various programs out there that are targeting African American young people to study music and to further their education in music.
Okay.
Yes.
What does FAME stand for?
I have to find out what it
Okay.
stands for, but it is wonderful. It is, and they have it every year. They have programs throughout the year, and in the summertime they have a summer camp, and they have also included music technology as well with the camp. It is just really a wonderful tool to attract our young people.
Okay.
And everything. Like I said, the music technology and the hip hop is really taking our young people. And but I think if we continue to just, push the importance of reading music, the importance of learning an instrument, the importance of learning music theory and music fundamentals, I think they will still push to gain interest and to work and to be great at what they do.
And the reason I have concern is
Yeah.
I know sometimes, especially in Washington, D.C.,
Yes.
you might see these young people, they have these empty containers where
Yes.
they turn into drums and all that.
Yes.
Excuse me, and I just wonder
Right.
how many great musicians are being overlooked because some of these programs have been cut. Now, what I love about it, not just
And
learning...
even young musicians that are training, some of them are
Mhm.
being overlooked. Some of the younger musicians.
Yeah, because when I look at Zora, for example...
Yes.
Not only am I happy that she's learning to play the instrument, but
Yes.
the growth,
Yes.
the intellectual growth that she gets from learning
Music
an
music does that. It actually helps you to correlate the academics together, especially with the math. And then when people find out that you play an instrument or you sing, they actually gravitate toward you more. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question real
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
What is one of your major objectives as a professor with your students that you try to achieve?
Oh my goodness. I try to, when I get a student, especially when I get a piano student, always, look at where they're at. And then I say, ooh, and I, listen to them play. Even if they haven't had piano before, and they play something for me, I try to assess where they're at. And then I say, oh, okay, well, by this time, you could be here. I try to assess where they will be by a certain time.
Okay.
And that's how I try to bring out the best in them.
And I'm curious,
Yes.
in order for you to do a fair assessment,
Yes.
how clear does your mind have to be? I mean, if you've had a rough day, a road rage or whatever, I'm just curious, how do you set your frame of mind to ensure you give a very fair assessment to a student?
Um,
Or is,
I actually like doing that. So, you know, even if I've had a busy day, even if I've had a rough day, I still, um, I can just tell. It's like I've been given insight to know what they need, even when they play for me, even when they don't play anything. You know, even if they tell me, I said, you know, if you're taking piano, how long have you taken piano? They said, well, I took it for a year, then I backed away from it. Then they have to come back. I said, well, if you've taken it for a year, then you know a little bit, you know. And then there's some that come and they move quick, you know. So, and then I say, oh, okay, we can move from this book and let's go to this book next. Okay, you don't have to go through level 1. Now we can go to level 2 or level 3.
these assessments, I'm assuming, are
Yeah.
the individuals are reading music.
Yeah, they are reading music, yes, not just playing by ear.
Do you have many students or any students that just play by ear?
Yeah, and some of them they want to come and read, but sometimes when they just want to play by ear, they don't last very long.
Why is
Because
that?
they just want to continue to develop their ear, and they don't want to go through the process. It's a process you have to go through with.
And for someone who's gone through the process,
Yeah.
how do you respond to that kind of person?
Some
Still
of them,
objective?
I somewhat am objective to it. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't like it, because I would love to see them develop and become greater at it. But you have to be able to, I love the process. I'm in love with the process. There's some people that are not necessarily in love with the process. They want instant gratification.
Okay. Well, let's move on to
Yeah.
you as the performer.
Okay. Sure.
One of the questions I always ask musicians and singers: do you ever get nervous?
I do. I do. I get.
And you've been performing how long?
I've been performing since I was 7, so 7, 8 years old. Yeah, I still get nervous. Especially when I have to perform a new piece. I get nervous. I do, because, I purposely hope that I don't ever really get there, and that I'm always at a place where I'm learning something new and fresh, because it helps keep me grounded. Helps me stay grounded. So for me, yeah, when, if I have to do a concert or performance, I get a little nervous. And sometimes that's okay, you know.
Do you have any kind of ritual or anything? How do you prepare before
Oh,
performance?
when I prepare for a performance, I usually have to, especially if I'm playing, I always do my technique, my scales, all of that. That's the ritual of my scales, making sure, everything is tip top, and everything. So I do have, ritual that I go through. Yes.
How difficult is it, if at all, playing an instrument and singing? Is that
Oh, if you're not used to doing it, that can be difficult, because it's coordinating, being able to coordinate and sing. You're thinking about where you're going. So first, when I started doing that, it was difficult, but the more I did it, it became better. Because I have to sing, play, and direct now. So
was it difficult? Were you off with the music, or were you off with your singing?
because with the hand coordination, you have to play everything correctly while you're singing. So being able to balance that was a little difficult. But, I just kept practicing and doing it more, and then it just became like second nature.
Now, you play the piano, but you also play
Organ. My secondary instrument in college was pipe organ. So that's why
Wow.
I can play that organ in Bethesda, the big organ.
Do you find a lot of people that can play the pipe organ?
No,
I didn't think so.
not many of us. Most of them can play the Hammond B3 organ, but not the big pipe organ, because it comes with a little bit more training.
Okay.
With the sound of the pipe organ is different from the Hammond B3 organ, because it's a bigger sound and a more majestic sound. So it's very intimidating.
And
And
I'm
then you
sorry.
have the manuals too.
When did you learn how to play that?
In college, undergrad, University of Montevallo, Alabama. I studied under Dr. Betty Louise Lumbey at the time.
Was that required, or was it an elective?
It was my secondary instrument. So we
Oh, your
had,
secondary, okay.
because I was a piano major, so you had to have a That was my piano was my main instrument. Then you had to have a secondary instrument. So I would have chosen voice, but I said no, I can sing a little bit. I said let me do organ, and it was pretty difficult. It was very intimidating because I had to have organ shoes and stuff.
Organ shoes? Real quick, tell us about organ shoes. I've never heard
The
of
organ shoes, you know, there was a type of organ shoe that you have that you had to play with to play on the pipe organ. So sometimes then you know it had a heel, thick heel to it, and you could either get them in like black, white, gray, or gold. Yeah,
So is
the
that
type of
past,
shoe.
is that past tense? You don't need it now?
I actually, you know, for the professional organist, you know, that are, you know, concert organists, they do play with organ shoes because the pedaling is something about the pedal, the heel locks on the pedal better.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah,
So when you play, Professor Wren, we
Yeah.
had one gentleman on here. His name is Fittler. I don't know if you're aware of him, but he plays in the
Okay.
Metro a lot.
okay,
And he went to some school up in New York. But I
Okay.
remember we had him on the show.
yes, yes,
And he was saying sometimes when he plays,
yes.
I guess the best way I can remember, I can't quote him, but it was like he almost went to sleep or something. He's like he just got so deep into the music.
Yes.
Have you had that experience?
Oh yes, oh
Tell
yes.
us about that.
You know, sometimes when we do play, you get so entrenched into what you're doing. It's almost like you know you're going to heaven, because music can can get so good you can go to. It's very heavenly, because it comes from God. You know, all good and perfect gifts come from on high. So music carries a spirit. You know, that's why they said, you know, there's some people that only probably listen to, you know, a certain type of music, or people that are very spiritually based. They only listen to probably just gospel music or church music because music, you know, can take you there. It really can.
Let me break it down just a little bit.
Yes.
For the member in the audience who might have just heard you say it's like going to heaven, excuse me, they may find themselves saying, "Oh, what is that lady talking about?" Can you elaborate
Okay.
even a little bit more?
Oh my goodness. I remember as a child growing up in the church and how choirs marched down the aisle. As a little girl, I had not started playing the piano yet, but it was something about the music that just drew me even more into wanting to know more about music, even wanting to know more about God too. Um, and just music is, like I said before, you know, music is one of the things that can almost to the point can make or break something. You know, can make or break a situation, or it can make a situation better, or it can make a situation worse.
And that's interesting when you say that
Mm-hmm.
music can make a situation worse. I mean, I think more along the inspiration perspective.
Oh yeah, it
So
can make it
can you
better
help
or
me out?
worse.
Kind of share with our audience when you say, I mean, give me an example if you
Oh.
can think of one where it might make it worse.
Sometimes just the type of music that it is. You know, when because there's music out there that can cause, you know, a person to, you know, do something bad to themselves.
okay.
You know, and depending upon how it sounds, you know, the sound of music, that there's a sound of music that's pleasing to God. So, and then there's a sound of music, you know, that's pleasing to, you know who.
Right.
You know, music is a very, very powerful. Music is just very powerful anyway. You know, even if you listen to the radio when you get in your car, you know, music can make your day better. You know, the sound of it. You know, if it's a pleasant sound, you know, it could just make your bad day brighter. If you're having a bad day, you say, "Oh my goodness, that song was so wonderful," you know, and by making it worse, you know, it's just like some of the music that we're hearing from hip hop now, you know, cursing in the music, and you know, just all kinds of things that are going on now with the music. A lot of the music is so sexual,
Right.
you know, sexual connotations, you know, it's just, and not saying that sex is bad or anything like that, but But some of it, can be a little much,
Okay.
you know.
As you're talking, real quick, because I want to talk a little bit about, I know you got about 3 CDs. I want to talk about them real quick.
Okay,
Excuse
sure.
me, but as you were just talking, I thought about Marvin Gaye. And
Oh,
I know
yes.
Marvin Gaye even had an album out, I think on the cover, one where he was looking like Satan, I think, and then the other one with the halo.
Yes.
And it is interesting how he ended up ultimately dying.
My father had that album, yes.
Any
Oh,
comments?
yes.
What are some of your thoughts on Marvin Gaye?
Marvin Gaye had a book out called Divided Soul. I think the name of the book was called Divided Soul. He constantly warred between, good and evil, because Marvin Gaye grew up in a household where his father, I think, was a pastor. He grew up in a, church household. So that particular album cover, I think it just, spoke to where he was at that time. He was warring against probably good and evil, phenomenal artist. I was greatly inspired by him too, He was also the voice too. Another, he was just phenomenal singer and musician and writer.
Well, yeah, there's another musician from my hometown.
Yes.
He's no longer with us, but Al Johnson.
Yes.
Matter of fact,
Yes, I know that name.
He was he sung the song, 23rd Psalm with Jeff Majors.
Yes, yes.
And Al, we went to the same high school. He was a few classes above me, but I
Okay,
remember
Okay.
there was a talent show,
Okay.
and Al came out and played a classical piece.
Get out.
But in high school, the high school, they just weren't ready for classical, so people were
I've
booing.
experienced it. I've experienced that.
So you know
before.
what I'm talking.
I've experienced that before.
But it was fascinating because Al got so angry, he turned over the piano. I will never forget that. But we know Al was known to be a kind of a genius.
Yeah.
You see?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I've experienced that very same thing too when I was growing up and developing in my gifts and with the piano. There's a community college in my hometown, Birmingham, where I was maybe around 13 or 14. I went and performed at a program at that particular community college. And I played something kind of classical, like what you were saying he had played. And they laughed at me. And I said, oh my goodness. So sometimes people, they don't understand it. So when they don't understand it or it's intimidating to them, they'll react that way.
Well, real quick, because we only have a few minutes left.
Sure.
Did that inspire you, or were you discouraged, or from that experience? Just
I
wanna
was
get a quick-
upset. I was
Okay.
upset because I said, why are they laughing at me like
Right,
that?
right.
And I'm working hard and,
But you kept on pushing.
I kept on pushing. It inspired me even more.
Okay. Well, real quick, because we only have a few more minutes.
Yes.
But you have 3 CDs, I believe.
Yes, I do. I do have to.
Can you quickly tell us about the?
Oh my goodness!
The first one.
The first CD that I did was called "From My Heart to God's Heart," Volume 1, and I did that back in 2008. Released that one.
Interesting. How did you come up with that title? From My Heart to God's Heart.
At that particular time, I had put together a compilation of arrangement of hymns on the piano, and at that particular time, I was, spiritually, I was, I was just at a really high place. Okay. So I felt like that was, I was giving that back to God, okay. And so those particular, it was about, let me see, about 6 or 7 arrangement of hymns. The Lord's Prayer, arrangement of the Lord's Prayer, God Bless America, I Love You, Lord, Today. My own arrangements on the piano. Okay. And that's just to name a few that were on that.
And
CD.
of course, we're going to end up closing out our show with one of your performances, God Bless America.
Yes.
Real quick, what's the name of your second CD?
The name of my second CD is Classical with LaTanya.
Okay. And when was that produced?
That was produced on last year. It was released November 1st, 2016. It was produced by myself. So.
All right. I'm going to try to squeeze in real quick. I know you did a tour this past summer.
Over in Italy, yes, with Life Waters Ministries, Dr. Nagletha Johnson. Is a good friend of mine. She's a psalmist. She's a singer, songwriter out of Fairfax, Virginia area, DMV area. and she asked me to go with them. They went on the music missions trip.
Okay.
And so she also asked me to go along with them to play for the group and also to be able to promote some of my music off of the CD while I was over there. And it was a great success.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Professor Wren.
Thank
And,
you. Thank
You
you.
know, I want to go back to our title, Music, a Godly Gift of Inspiration. And,
Yes.
And you've shared with our audience just how inspiring music can be.
Yes.
And we're going to close out the show at this point because we're going to have a couple of your performances.
Yes.
There's and
Okay.
the other one will be God Bless America.
Yes.
Because we think 2017, like I said, has been just I can't even describe it.
Yes.
Can't even find the right words for it.
Yes.
But in all, we still want America to be blessed.
Yes.
So it would be a blessing to us to close out with your song.
Thank you.
So I want to say God bless you,
Thank you. God bless
Professor
you too.
Wren.
Thank
And I
you.
also want to say Sister Wren.
Yes.
God bless your whole soul.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have to have you back on Africa's Vision Network.
Thank you. God
Thank
bless
you.
you. I appreciate you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.